Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I like to discuss Count Binface in terms of my general desire to see the Tories wiped out. But unlike some who also want the same thing, I'm actually going to defend Binface in the interests of one of the few remaining things left in British politics, which is genuinely good. So, an introduction first, essentially to international viewers. British politics is a little bit odd in certain regards, you may have noticed, and no odder than the presence of a certain class of candidate, which you might call fringe candidates, or if you wanted to be uncharitable, even joke candidates. Like, you know, you watch The Simpsons, you see a character like Bumblebee Man standing for election, you think, that's a funny cartoon. Or Homer actually standing and winning dressed as a salamander. But this sort of behaviour actually exists in the UK. The last time Nigel Farage stood for Parliament, he finished behind a candidate whose shtick was to dress like a dolphin. The dolphin didn't win, by the way, but he was a candidate and was not considered particularly remarkable for dressing like a dolphin. At the last election, Boris Johnson faced off against, as well as Count Binface, Elmo. Not the real Elmo, who's much smaller, I think. More like an Elmo tribute act. But nonetheless, Boris Johnson was on stage sandwiched between Elmo and Count Binface when he received the news that he had won his seat in the last election. And these are just individuals. We have an entire party dedicated to this wonderful aspect of British politics, the monster raving loony party. I fear they may find some challenge competing with the Tories for the loony vote in the coming election, but they'll bounce back. And the most prominent of all these candidates is, in British politics at the moment, Count Binface. Used to be Screaming Lord Such, now it's Count Binface. Formerly Lord Buckethead, until someone pulled a fast one with copyright law. In one guise or other, he stood against the Prime Minister in every general election going back to Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s. So it was absolutely no surprise that he's entered himself as a candidate to stand against Rishi Sunak. Only, small little wrinkle this year, the latest MRP polls show that although Rishi Sunak looks likely to retain his seat, as all Prime Ministers have done in post-war elections, this year he is at risk. Polling puts the Labour candidate not quite in striking distance in these polls, but if we take account of a couple of things, it could be very interesting. First, we haven't had any decent MRP polls where the fieldwork took place since Nigel Farage announced his leading role. Second, the same applies with regards to Sunak dropping a major bollock with veterans this week. Now, Catterick Garrison is in Sunak's constituency. This is a seat with, as you can guess, major links to the military. And Sunak may just have not only cost his party a lot of votes around the country with his misbehaviour last week, but himself personally in Richmond and Northallerton. In fact, it may well be the case that the field work taking place right now for a future round of MRPs, maybe next week, maybe the week after, will show that Labour are actually now in a very close fight with Sunak for the seat. At which point, some people are now concerned that if the contest goes down to the wire and is settled by just a few votes, the inclusion of Count Binface will potentially scupper the chance to cost Sunak his seat. However, I take the view this is part of British politics, and it's a good part of British politics. Colourful candidates are one of the few aspects to general elections that aren't completely broken right now. And it is for Labour, as well as other tactical voting advocates, to let people in Richmond and Northallerton know there could be a tight contest this year, and I very much hope the next round of MRP polls show that, and that Sunak can absolutely be displaced. I mean, statistically, there are no safe seats for the Tories anywhere, really. You know, I mean, when it is possible for people to cast their votes, because remember, that's not the case right now. You don't have to decide who you're going to vote for right now. Nobody can actually cast their vote. But in about 2 weeks' time, those who sign up for postal voting will be able to cast their vote, I think. The latest MRP polls at that time, I think, should help solidify the message that Rishi Sunak is really in trouble and actually a real push could tip him over the edge. And of course, where there's a Tory to be removed, there is stopthetories.vote to give you the best advice on how to do it. Remember, not every constituency, including this one I think at the moment, has a recommendation right now. But like I said, it will when you need it. Especially with the events of last week. The later waves of MRP polls to come could shake things up quite a bit. So it's almost like in quite a lot of these difficult to assess seats, the MRP polls we have right now, I mean, you know, given what happened last week with Farage and D-Day, there's going to be a lot of shake-up. But in the meantime, if there's no recommendation for you at the moment, it is still useful to go on. I mean, first of all, to find out whether there is or there isn't recommendation. But there is still data. And there's links to register to vote, register for postal voting if that would suit you or someone you know better, and how to make sure that you have valid voter ID. Please remember, not all ID is valid, as too many people have discovered during the last 2 local elections. But as to my main point, my view would be, it's great that Count Binface is standing. I love the stage photos with him when the results are read out. Just don't vote for him if you want to see Sunak utterly crushed next month. I'll cover his deposit if it comes to that. Besides, he might actually attract a few undecided Conservative voters. After all, the Tories seem to think that their voters like promises of bringing obsolete things back. And Count Binface is a huge advocate for the return of CFAX. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.